What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Building a Buzz podcast. This week, we have on Traci Deen. She's the CEO of Conservation Florida, an organization that means a whole lot to me in Get Up and Go kayaking. So we'll talk you through that, but also you'll get to learn about what Traci does on the daily, current projects they have going on, past projects that they're super proud of, and everything in between. So stick around for an amazing episode. Thanks for tuning in. We are here today with none other than Traci Deen. Traci, how is your day going?
So far, so great. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Yes, I'm excited too. We've chatted in the past briefly, and Get Up and Go has obviously donated to Conservation Florida. So I'm excited to learn more about what it is that you guys do on a daily basis, yearly basis, and all of those things. But before we get into that, tell me how this all started. Like, how did you become CEO of Conservation Florida?
Yeah, good question. So, I went to law school after graduating from Florida State. And I knew that I really wanted to go into nonprofit or public sector law. I had a really great mentor who actually introduced me to the idea of environmental law, environmental lobbying, land conservation, and more. And so eventually a position opened up with Conservation Florida. I decided to throw my name in the hat based on good recommendation of a couple of mentors out there who led me there. And they took a chance on me. I took a chance on them, and it's been the best decision I could have made for my career. It's exactly where I'm supposed to be. It's a job that brings me a ton of joy, and honestly, it's the best mission in the world, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
It's really good work. It's hard work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you went into law school, what was your original study path? Beyond the environmental thing? Like, what did you think you would be doing after law school?
Yeah, so I studied mostly trial advocacy. I thought, I'll go cut my teeth in the courtroom, or, maybe I'll do a more traditional practice of law. And I did for a few years after law school. I was a public defender in Orange County here in downtown Orlando. And that was an incredible learning experience for certain. It definitely toughened me up. Again, I cut my teeth in a big way, and it fed that part of me that wanted to serve in some capacity. But criminal defense wasn't my calling long term, even though I think criminal defense attorneys and state attorneys, particularly in the public sector criminal defense, are doing incredible work for Florida and for our communities. But I thought, what do I love? What really calls to me? And as a sixth generation Floridian, the answer became very, very evident to me when I really truly asked, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I should be doing? And protecting this place that we call home, and protecting her environment, and protecting Florida for future generations just really sparked something in me. And so I landed, I think, again, exactly where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't realize that you did defense attorney work before this. So whenever it comes down to it, you're ready to put the gloves on and go to war for Florida, and it's kind of cool that you've seen that side of the legal system, and now being on a completely different standpoint when you look at the legal system. So it's cool. I didn't realize that was part of your journey, and it's what makes you, and I think that's a really cool part of your experience. So randomly, was it like you saw a job posting for Conservation Florida, or someone told you about it? Like, how did you first learn about Conservation Florida?
So at the time, I was working at an environmental advocacy center, and we were doing a lot of advocacy for nature, not just in Florida, but throughout the United States, and even on global issues. And one of the board members that was on Conservation Florida's board at the time sent me the posting and said, hey, this might be something that speaks to you. And then again, a mentor, a couple of them really encouraged me to consider doing that. I think, going from more traditional advocacy to running a nonprofit, it was a scary leap of faith. But, advocacy, I felt at the time that I was just really sort of talking about it a lot, sometimes yelling about it a lot. This is what we need to change. This is why we need to change it. And here's why. And I'm passionate. And it felt a little bit like running in place. But land conservation in particular, it's an awesome field. It's incredibly difficult. It does definitely include policy work, at least at Conservation Florida. But when, at the end of the day, you're standing on land that you've helped conserve, it's tangible. It's real. Like, you know exactly what you've done. You know what the blood, sweat, and tears has brought. And you know that you've done something that will and should last the test of time and will be here long after all of us. So it's incredible. I encourage everybody who's interested in Florida and our wild places and the future of our state to get involved with Conservation Florida for exactly that reason. Like you, I mean, what you're doing supporting Conservation Florida is you're saving land. Like, you are doing that. And so, it's a feeling that I don't want to hoard. No one on our team wants to hoard. We want everyone to feel that with us and to get involved in that with us. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And so for the people that don't know exactly what Conservation Florida is, can you explain kind of the work that you guys do and just like a high level view of what Conservation Florida is?
Yeah, so Conservation Florida is a statewide land conservancy. We work on protecting water, wildlife, our wild places, and permanently protecting and connecting a functional Florida wildlife corridor. And now the Florida Wildlife Corridor is a swath of green agricultural land and natural land that spans our state from Pensacola to the Florida Keys. About 18 million acres total, about 10 of which are protected. There are about 8 million acres remaining that we consider opportunity areas for conservation. So we're focusing on protecting land that will build that statewide wildlife corridor, but also do a couple of those other things: store and protect our water, help with our natural water recharge, which includes protecting our springs and our rivers and our coasts, and also protect land that, not only secures habitat for our native plants and wildlife, but also offers outdoor recreation opportunities for not just Floridians, but our visitors too, which supports our healthy economy. But, one thing that we're a little bit different in is that we work with agriculture as well. And of the corridor, of the remaining unprotected land within the Florida Wildlife Corridor, a significant percentage of it is actually agricultural land, ranch lands, and timberlands.
Yeah.
We're working with Florida's agricultural community to conserve those properties, keep them working, keep them providing, keep them supporting the local, state, rural economy and beyond, while also contributing to this larger state vision for conservation. It's the mission is big, but at the end of the day, it's all about saving wild Florida, saving this place we call home, and for the love of Florida as a whole.
Yeah. I love that it's called Conservation Florida. Like, there's so many things in Florida that need conservation. You're not limited to land or water or whatever. Like, there's so many different aspects of conservation that you guys touch on, and I'm always seeing in the news that you guys are saving land, and it's really cool. It's like, it's fun. I've been donating now, 6 years, maybe 7 years. And it's so cool seeing that that you guys are actually out there doing it. I feel like in the past I've donated to things and you don't really get to see where the money's going, but with you guys, I can actually go visit the land that is being saved, or whatever it is. And to your point earlier, that's a pretty cool feeling that you can go and touch it, and see what's happening. And are there some big ones that maybe are more recognizable that people may connect with that you guys have preserved so far? I know like the D Ranch and, a couple other ones maybe.
Yeah. So if you're in Volusia County or if you travel to or around Volusia County, we have an almost 500-acre preserve that is not yet open to the public, but that we host the public on somewhat frequently. It is habitat for black bear and bald eagles and endangered native plants, and it is magical. It's one of the coolest properties I've been on. It has about 13 different habitats on it, and we are frequently finding new species out there. It's an exciting time. We're doing some restoration as well, including wetland restoration and longleaf pine restoration. So that's a really, really cool place. It was
Hmm.
a part of, gosh, a 10 or 11,000 acre ranch back in the day that had
Yeah.
been split up over time. About 8 or 9,000 acres of it had been protected to date. An incredibly generous individual owned the property. It was listed for sale for development. It had been slated for hundreds of homes and a shopping center and a new school and just a whole community,
Hmm.
uh, which we can talk about it in a little bit. It's important for Floridians and future Floridians to have a great place to live and work and raise a family for sure. But this property is a part of a larger landscape and a larger history and heritage of Florida. And again,
Hmm.
it's home to so many of our precious species that are quickly um, leaving due to development.
Yeah.
So again, there are places that we should save and there are places that we should pave, and this was one of the places that we should absolutely save. So when the landowner reached out with interest to conserve it and donate it, it it just made our hearts so happy. We were really, really, really honored to work with them to conserve that property forever. And
Hmm.
now we have the responsibility to manage it and steward it in perpetuity as well. So that's an example of one of the things that your contribution does is you're keeping this place special and well managed, and eventually it will be open to the public. But that, yeah, D Ranch is definitely going to be a jewel in Volusia County in Central Florida. We
Yeah.
also recently protected with our partners at DEP about 135 acres on the Rainbow River. That was a really special property that I had the privilege to visit right around closing. It has some incredible frontage on the Rainbow River. It's actually
Hmm.
the last large piece left along the river that was not protected. And I paddled it with photographer Carlton Ward. And it was so surreal. It was a very chilly Florida morning. There was just steam coming up off of the river. The wildlife was just waking up, and it hit me so hard why protecting places like that is so very important. I mean, there was magic there,
Mm.
and it's the only really way I can explain it. It was just stunning. And so
Yeah.
that was a closing recently, again with our partners at DEP that we're really, really proud of. That will be enjoyed by Floridians and our guests forever. That view, that scenic view along the water, that will be there.
Yeah.
Again, that's thanks to a good partnership and a landowner who wished to conserve their land.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. And yeah, that one is close to home for me too, because we, obviously have a location there, and I know that waterway super well. And being able to paddle as you're going upstream on the left side, you've got, houses pretty much lining the canal, but on the right side, you still get the wild Florida. And I'm trying to imagine that waterway without that whole right side, being as, Florida as it can possibly be, would definitely take away from that waterway. And so to me, that was a huge win. I think you texted me when it was like when it closed or something, or when the news was coming out, and I was like, yes, like that was a good one. And it's really cool to see that you guys are making that happen, and that there's people out there that are fighting for these things to be saved. It's I want to be that person, but like I try to just educate our guests on it, as best we can. I don't know how to go out and actually save the land. Like I need to leave that to professionals like you. And so it's cool to know that that we have you and your team and everyone fighting for the same reason, the same purpose. And there's so many fun things that you guys are doing and saving, and it's really cool to watch from afar. How do you guys like determine what's the next thing that we're going to save, because I can imagine there's a lot of land that's for sale around the state. There's just a lot of different things going on. So how do you guys kind of like prioritize, like, hey, we're going to go for this patch of land that's on the rainbow, or we're going to go for the D ranch? Like, how do you guys prioritize that?
I will answer that in a second, but before we get into that, I'd like to comment a little bit on your statement before that, and really thank you and Get Up and Go, because not only are you supporting land conservation in a very meaningful way, we cannot do this work without people and businesses like you, period. We cannot do it. But Get Up and Go, and I have paddled with your team before without saying like, oh, I'm a partner or I'm with Conservation of Florida. And being on the water with your team, you're absolutely right. You are talking about nature. You're talking about why it's important to protect, why these places that we have the privilege of enjoying in a clear kayak of all things. You are connecting people with nature. And we cannot build a larger conservation table without introducing nature to people meaningfully. There's, why should you care about conservation? Well, there are 1,000 reasons, but being in it and experiencing it and smelling it and just feeling that serenity that, for example, being on the water on a crisp Florida morning can give, it doesn't impact you, as heavily. So you're doing that every single day. You're introducing people to wild Florida, and for that we're grateful. Beyond your contribution, thank you for introducing people to the beauty of Florida. But
yeah, of course, that's kind of the hope of what we do. Like, back to your statement earlier of like, they were going to build community on it. I kind of run into the same thing with the kayaking. Like, the same thing that we strive so hard to protect is also the same thing that we're using, on a daily basis. So like, I don't want to contribute to the downfall of the waterways that we're on, but ultimately just being on the waterway, some would say, contributes to the downfall of the waterway. So at minimum, if we can at least educate people on the best way to interact with the wildlife or the plant life or the waterway or the land or whatever it is, that's my hope, is that we can, a lot of these people that come out on tours like have never been to Florida before, and even the locals haven't experienced these waterways and don't really know the best practices when it comes to wildlife conservation, land conservation, water conservation. And so if we can at least educate them, so the next time when they do come back that they know how to recreate on these waterways, then I feel like I've done a good contribution. Ultimately, I feel like if you do everything you can to educate others about it, you're doing the right thing.
And again, I think you're doing it very, very well. Having been on a handful of your tours with really, really kind and educated guides whose passion is very evident every single time I go out. You're introducing people to wild Florida, and you're recreating responsibly. I think that's definitely hammered during your tours. This is, a special place. This is how you take care of it. This is why we care. This is why we contribute. And this is how you do it right. And so for that, you're setting an example in a big way of how to have and grow a business, but also be a good native Floridian. Honestly, you're doing it right, and we're grateful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So back to, how do you guys pick? Like, how do you guys choose? Do you go for the low hanging fruit? Do you go for the big things? Like, do you have a lot of things going on at once? Like, how do you guys figure out what's next?
So we do have a lot of projects going on at once. Right now, we have about 110,000 acres in our portfolio that we are actively working and moving forward in conservation. And so, yeah, are a lot of projects that are in the works, but those were not low-hanging fruit. They were definitely strategically targeted, and if we're moving a conservation project forward, it's for a good reason. And it'll do one of the priorities of ours. It will be protecting our water. It will be recharging our drinking water, our fresh water. It will be protecting our native plants and wildlife. It will be protecting endangered species. It will be, potentially providing outdoor recreation experience or access, or it will protect and here's a fun one that I want to get into with a little bit, is it will potentially protect our national security and also our food security in the state. We're looking at a variety of data sources. We're pulling maps. We're looking at the landscape as a whole. We're looking at what a property does for Florida. Does it protect water, wildlife? Is it a wild place? Does it protect a local economy? Does it protect national security? Does it provide food security? Is it a working cattle ranch, for example? What does it do in the larger picture? But also a huge factor of all of this is there a willing landowner? Does this landowner want to do this? We only work with landowners who are interested in conserving their land. We are not in the business of forcing anybody to do anything they don't want to do. What's really cool about Florida, and is really cool about Floridians, is that overwhelmingly we're deeply caring about conservation and this place we call home. I think we are all really proud to be Floridians and love Florida for her wildness. And so landowners are really, really showing up in a big way right now in time and offering their land for conservation. Yeah. So we actually have more landowners reaching out to us than we actually have the capacity to serve right now in 2023. Wow. But we're growing in size to meet that demand so that we can have even larger of an impact on our state. So the good news is there's land to save, and it's strategic and scientifically based, and there are landowners that are willing to do it, and Conservation Florida and land trusts throughout the state and partners like DEP and the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, the Department of Interior, the USDA, we're all out there working with those landowners and bringing forward really good, sound land conservation. So it's definitely rooted in science, but at the end of the day, you need a willing landowner as well to bring it forward.
So when they're reaching out to you guys, how do they find out about you guys? Like, you're not showing up at the doorstep saying, hey, do you have some land to donate? How does that usually happen? Is there a common theme of like how they hear about you guys and figure out that they want to donate?
So it depends on the property. Sometimes we are reaching out proactively and we're saying, hey, you're a critical linkage in this statewide Florida wildlife corridor, and your land is really important for conservation. And are you interested in selling? Are you interested in selling a conservation easement or donating a conservation easement or working with us on a creative path to long-term conservation? Yeah. So sometimes we're doing that. Sometimes we are knocking on doors, so to speak. But more often than not, landowners are self-identifying. They're saying, hey, we've either just purchased this property and it's really special and we recognize it, or we've had this property for 30 years, or one of my favorites is we've had this property for 200 years.
Oh my gosh.
And, this is really, really, really important to us. We don't think that this should be anything but wild. And so,
that's cool.
Yeah. So having those conversations from someone who just purchased a property to a family who's owned it for many generations, up to 10, the root cause for reaching out to us is often very, very much the same. And it's a love of place, and it's a love of Florida, and it's a love of the wildness of it all.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I didn't realize that so many people reached out to you guys. I was thinking a lot of it is, getting out there and doing the advocacy, which obviously you guys do. The 5K was last month, and you guys always have a lot of things going on, a lot of events, but it's cool to know that there's people out there that are wanting to donate their land or whatever that may be, and I think that's something that more people need to consider is just, if you're wanting to save a special place, like what better way to do it than literally saving that place for eternity, for as long as we can see in the future. And that's really cool. So the ones that maybe aren't donated to you guys, how do you guys go about like raising the funds to go after some bigger properties, things like that? Is it through state funded programs, private donors? Is it all of the above? Like where's the bread and butter for you guys when it comes to getting the donations and being able to actually purchase the land?
All of the above. So, for example, your contribution goes toward our acquisition, our work to protect special places. What we do very, very well is put a deal together. We have an incredible team of strategists and conservationists that are looking at a property and asking, how the heck do we save this? What funding sources are there? What do we have to do to get it over the finish line? That may be a 30-acre property with a super endangered wildflower, or it may be a 15,000-acre, landscape that absolutely must be saved.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying, how do we tackle this? And we're really, really good at that. So it could be buying it outright. We are in negotiations right now on some acreage within Big Cypress, and
cool.
It's small potatoes on paper, but it has a humongous impact on the health of one of our national treasures and the Everglades, right? So we're also working on large properties that we have to pull many, many, many funding sources together to pull off. So we may need to pull several grants. We may need to fundraise, but what we're good at is asking, how do we do this, and making it happen, and then utilizing every resource we have to make that property get over the finish line and conserve it in perpetuity forever.
Yeah. How long is that process usually from like discovering a piece of land that you guys want to conserve to closing the deal? Does it vary? Is it pretty typical for it to be done, in a quick time period? How does that usually play out?
Depends on the property. We've had landowners reach out that have a pretty straightforward deal. They want to donate their property, or they want to donate an easement, and that could take anywhere from 90 days, maybe 6 months, sometimes shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. When we're putting a really big deal together and we're matching funding sources and we're pulling partnerships in and we're leveraging our own match and we're doing everything we can to pull off a multi-million-dollar deal, sometimes that can take some time just building the partnerships alone. That could take up to 5 years sometimes. It's not what we want. We'd love to make things happen really, really quickly, but some deals take a hot minute to get there. But, it's always worth it.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure that 5 years, at the end of it, you're like, whew,
it's a good feeling.
Yeah,
it's a really good
feeling. I'm sure. So what is the daily look like for you now? Is it what you thought it was going to be when you first started with Conservation Florida, which was how many years ago now?
6 or 7, unbelievably. I think, you and I really leaned into Conservation Florida around the same time.
Yeah.
So, which is like really awesome looking back. But in a lot of ways, yes. In a lot of ways, no. At the time that I joined Conservation Florida, we were a smaller nonprofit. A smaller nonprofit with a ton of potential. The board of directors had a vision. We had one team member who's still on our crew, who's just invaluable to us. And the board said, we know what this organization could be. We know that there's a huge mission. We know there's a lot of work to do. What can we do? How can we support you and the team to get there? And so we started off looking at what could be, and now my goodness, I think we're at 13 or 14 people on the team working on over 100,000 acres, looking at millions of acres that we're intending to strategically target with our partners throughout the state. And my day-to-day, it varies. Sometimes I'm in Tallahassee talking with our change makers and our state leaders about conservation policy and how to move projects forward faster, and state funding, and why it's important to Floridians, and why it's critical to the future of our state. Another day, I'm in a staff meeting and we're talking about strategy and the future of conservation in Florida. And some days, I'm running payroll and reviewing budgets and, working with my operations manager, who's awesome, on just the day-to-day of running a business. And running a nonprofit is running a business. At the end of the day, it is a business. It's just a business that does not, we're not founded to make a profit, but it is very much running a business like any other. You want to succeed. You want to have happy, healthy culture. You want your team members to feel empowered, and you want to do right by your investors, which for a nonprofit are our donors and our supporters. And so it's not so probably different from your day-to-day sometimes. And then there are the incredible opportunities to get out on the land and experience the why of it. They are fewer and far between than I would love anymore. But as we grow and as our impact grows and our team grows, my role as a CEO has shifted quite a bit. And so I'm not on the boots on the ground as much as I'd like anymore, but I have incredible teammates who are out there, including my VP, Adam Bass, who are just bringing these deals together in an awesome way, and I couldn't be prouder.
Yeah, that's so cool. I do feel like our day-to-day is probably similar. I definitely resonate with some of those things that you said you do on the daily. And I wish I was out there giving tours more often,
Exactly.
where I started the business, I gave tours myself for 2 years, and then now I just, do payroll, like you said, I'm doing these things that are different from when I started. Do you feel like you learned a lot about the business world, transitioning from defense attorney to CEO of do you feel like you've really learned a lot?
I have. There's no doubt about it. And I have a board of directors that rocks, and they support Conservation Florida, and they support our team so thoroughly. We are well positioned to succeed. But I told them, one of my first days at Conservation Florida, I started in September, maybe 3 weeks in, I Googled, how do you run payroll? And I was like, oh my gosh, they hired a lawyer lobbyist. I don't have my MBA. Maybe they made a mistake, but you figure it out. And if you have the guts to try, and the guts to try and fail and learn from that, and then keep going, especially if you're passionate the way that you are, the way that we are at Conservation Florida, you're going to hit your goals. You're going to have a positive impact. And, learning is a humongous part of that growth. So taking it on the chin sometimes, acknowledging that you don't know what you don't know, figuring it out fast, and, having, I hope, the grace to fail sometimes in a way that you can learn from.
Yeah.
Is probably what does it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you sound like an amazing leader, so I'm sure that your team is definitely thankful to have you on board, and being there for 6-7 years now, is a thing that not a lot of people can say. I feel like everyone jumps jobs so quickly nowadays, and you sticking there for as long as you have, and being able to accomplish the growth that you guys have accomplished, it only means that you're an amazing leader, so congrats on how much you've done so far.
I really appreciate that, but I have an amazing team, and they make me look really, really good. And so I I hope to just try and make them proud every single day. And I know it's vice versa, and that's some of the magic sauce of
Yeah.
what Conservation Florida is
How
having.
do you go about finding a good team? Because I find that sometimes that can be a little difficult, you know?
Yeah, that is a good question. And there has been a bit of a learning curve for me there
Is this one of
too.
those things that you Google?
Yeah, how to hire. Um,
Because I have. I
yeah,
don't know if you have, but I have for sure.
I've found that over the years, we have brought on some really incredible people. And the people that have made a difference in Conservation Florida's history, and we're talking the 25-year history before me and the people that will come after me, I think the common denominator will be a passion for the mission. So putting the
Mhm.
mission first. There have been people who have had an incredible impact with us who stayed with us a year, people who have had an incredible impact who volunteered with us for 10. Doing interviews, I I always ask, and this is probably something I shouldn't share publicly, but I always ask at the end, why should we conserve Florida? Why should
Mhm.
we protect wild places? And you know if someone is speaking from the heart or if
Mhm.
someone is giving a canned answer or if they're panicking
Yeah.
and like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't really care about this. I just need a job. And the people who answer it and you believe them and you know in your gut
Mhm.
that they want to work for the mission, those are the ones you hire, regardless of their background, regardless of their qualifications. Sometimes it's,
Yeah.
are you going to show up? Are you going to show up with passion? Are you going to show up for the mission? That's who I want.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I find that the people that do the best work for me as well are the people that are passionate about something, like whatever that may be, like as long as they've got some sort of correlating passion, like they typically do better, and usually like I'm looking for the people that are passionate to connect other people or passionate with nature or those types of things. And if you find that and you can tell in the interview, then yeah, who cares about the experience? I'm like, come on over,
Yeah,
let's do this.
we can train it. If
Yeah,
you love
exactly. Yeah.
Florida and you want to protect Florida and you're willing to learn and willing to train, let's go.
Yeah,
Figure
yeah,
it out.
that's great. That was a great answer. I like that a lot. So moving forward, I've heard a little bit about Protect Our Paradise, a series that you guys have going. Can you tell everyone and myself a little bit more about what that is and where we can watch it and be involved?
Yes. So, Protect Our Paradise, presented by Conservation Florida, is a 6-episode docu-series that we just aired across Florida, which is an incredible experience. We worked with Crawford Entertainment, Chad Crawford of How to Do Florida,
Hmm.
who had this awesome idea to make a docu-series about not only the environmental challenges that Florida is facing, but also some of the solutions and some of the people on the ground working to face those challenges and provide hope to Floridians and ways for Floridians to get involved in Florida's conservation future. And so the series, and I hope it really resonates with not only Floridians, but the many people visiting Florida every
Hmm.
single year and the many people that are moving to Florida every single year. I hope it resonates in a real way about what we're potentially losing by not doing something. I hope it showcases what we're facing and provides a means, a vehicle to get involved in shaping Florida's conservation future. It is a really beautiful docu-series. It focuses on our corridor, our water, our land, our growth, our coasts, and our wildlife. And those episodes, each episode really digs into the challenges that we're facing, the people working to protect our wild places, and provides, I hope, a vehicle again to get involved in shaping the future. So it's a cool TV show. It's going to stream on Discover Florida channel here in the fall. and we
Cool.
encourage everybody to watch.
Amazing. So it's not out quite yet, but you premiered it. How did you guys premiere? Was it just the idea that you guys have premiered, or what's been premiered already?
It's I think you're a millennial as well, and so for me, I was like, okay, it's syndicated and it's airing on TV across the state. That's super cool.
Yeah.
But I'm a cord cutter, and for me and our family, that we're gonna wait until it streams
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to watch in our home. Now I've seen all the episodes, of course, but it premiered in July,
Okay.
and really just from Pensacola to the Keys on TV, and many Floridians watched, and we've had really, really strong feedback on the series, and that's very exciting. But for those of us who wait to stream, it will stream here in a couple weeks this fall, and it's pretty bingeable.
Cool.
So yeah, just reserve a couple hours
Yeah.
and knock all 6 episodes out. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Amazing. I feel like I saw a shot of this in Rock Springs, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was a different spring, but I feel like I saw a shot somewhere in there.
I do believe Chad can be seen on a
Paddleboarding.
paddleboard.
Yeah. I thought that, I know my waterways pretty well, but I thought that was Rock Springs.
And you may know that waterway very, very well. So, a keen eye. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's one of our special treasures. So he's a Central Floridian as well. I love
Amazing.
that place.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely saving a few hours to binge watch the entire thing because that's what I will do when it comes out. So I'm stoked to watch that. I'm sure other people will be excited to watch that too, and I'll definitely share about it on social media and wherever I can because I love these types of things, and I think there needs to be more of it. There needs to be more people out there that are. There's so many people talking about the problem, but not enough people talking about the solutions. And so I'm really glad you mentioned that, like, he goes over the solution part of it because so many people just are like, okay, I know it's a problem, but what do I do? And so I'm glad he goes over that in the episodes.
That's right. We wanted to introduce people to places in Florida that they might not ever experience. We wanted to take people into the depths of a Florida spring or out on a vast cattle ranch. I mean, a lot of our residents and our visitors, they see our beaches, and though our coasts, oh my gosh, precious and deserve a ton of more protection and stewardship. But there are also so many incredible places that most of us won't ever experience. And so we hoped that this series would introduce some wildness to everybody. I don't even have the guts to go swamp walking and camera trap checking in the Everglades. And that takes guts. And, you see a little bit of that in the series. In that, they'll be introduced to some pretty somber truths about what our environment is facing, what our coasts and our wildlife and our springs and our waterways and our agriculture and, I mean, just the future of Florida, the growth alone. I mean, it is some of the truths, exposed in the series. They hit you pretty hard. But in the series, we do talk about the hope by introducing the many, many incredible people throughout the state. Not all. We wish we could highlight every single hero out there. But, the series introduces some of the cool, incredible nonprofits and individuals out there fighting to protect wild Florida and what they're doing and how they're doing it and how people can get involved. But the ultimate call to action is to work with us to protect our paradise, to protect this place we call home, and to get involved today. Today, now is the time to do something. And don't wait. Florida's too precious to wait any longer. And we need everybody involved to.
Yeah, I always like tell people yesterday was the best day to start, but today's the next best. So let's start today, if anything. And no, that's awesome. I'm really excited to watch that and see the impact that series will have for you guys and for Florida, and yeah, that's amazing. Couple last questions for you before I let you go. I'll try to respect your time. one big one is, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
That's a good question, Justin. That's a toughie. In my job, which to me doesn't really feel like a job at all, I hope to have left Florida in a little bit of a better place. I hope to continue to work with an incredible team to make meaningful conservation happen, and to inspire it and to advocate for it and to see it through. And I'd love nothing more than to look back on a life doing good and being proud of that. And in that, I hope my legacy sets an example from a little girl. I hope I make her really proud. I hope I raise her right. I hope that she's loved and knows that forever. And so I hope I'm a good person. That's a really tough question, but I appreciate it. You're going to cause me to reflect a lot after this podcast. So.
No, that's amazing. That's a great legacy to leave behind, and you're already doing those things. So you're well on your way to leaving that legacy behind. What are some of the biggest? You have a really unique view on Florida. What are some of the biggest issues that Florida is facing currently from a conservation standpoint?
Yes, we are growing by about 1,000 plus people every single day.
Wow.
I know. It's a city the size of Orlando coming to Florida every single year. To put that in perspective, I mean, every year another city of Orlando joining our state. And to put that into perspective, in my grandfather's lifetime, when he was growing up here, we had about 2 million people in our state. And, now we have 23 million. That's in one lifetime.
Wow.
Same
10
Florida.
times.
Yeah, one lifetime. Same Florida, same water, same land, same wildlife. We're all dependent on these, and I don't love the term natural resources, but we're dependent on this state. And, if we don't pause and plan ahead, we see what's coming. We know there are more people coming every single day. We know that with that comes the transition of some of our rural and wild lands into more urban uses. We know that our wildlife is in peril. We know that many of our most beloved species are dwindling right in front of our eyes. We know that we have, panther after panther being struck on our roads. We're seeing algae blooms and coastal issues. We're seeing die-offs, and, we know what we need to do. We know we just need to plan ahead. We need to be thoughtful about our future. And I believe strongly that Floridians, we care about Florida. And I also believe that we find common ground in the actual ground that we share. And in that, I find a ton of hope for the future of Florida. Because when Floridians talk about protecting this place, we are a united front. So we know what we have to do. We see our wildlife and our water and our wild places hurting. We see us growing rapidly, and we're saying, hey, we need to do something about this. The time is now or yesterday to go back to planning and looking at our state's future, and then acting meaningfully to curb some of what we know is coming in. And I believe very, very strongly that if we do that, the future for our state will be very bright.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the word thoughtful. I think more people just need to think about their impact, and how can they help, and if people are more thoughtful about it, I think a whole lot of change can come from just that, just the thought of thinking about how can I help? How can I do something? And if everyone does that, we can make a huge impact, and it's crazy the amount of impact that people can make just by thinking about how can I change this one little thing, or a couple little things to help better the bigger issue that we have, here in Florida, multiple issues that we have in Florida. One selfish thing I wanted to touch on before I let you go, and it's kind of sad, but also I think is the reason that I started donating and started understanding the need of conservation a lot more was the Alex Memorial Day that we have for Alex McKeeman. He was my first ever hired tour guide, a kid that I think he was like 22 years old at the time, sent me a DM on Instagram like, hey, I love nature. I love the outdoors. I want to work for you. And at the time, I was the only employee and the owner and everything. So I was like, that would be kind of nice to have, some extra help giving the tours. So Alex was my first hire, and I believe this was 7 years ago now. No, sorry, this would have been 6 years ago now. And I hired him it must have been September of 2017, and taught him, how to give tours, how to do everything. And one day he unfortunately passed away cave diving, free diving on his day off, and didn't resurface. So they searched for him for about 2 weeks before they actually found his body. But in the process of getting to know Alex and training him and learning from him, his Instagram handle was literally Finding Wild Florida, which I think is the coolest thing to this day. But he taught me a whole lot about nature and conservation, and he was super passionate at a young age of all of those things. And, after his passing, I wanted to do something that memorialized him for my lifespan. And so we came up with the Alex McKeeman Memorial Day every day, December 27th every year, which you've come out and paddled with us on that day. So thank you. But that's part of the reason that I found a big passion in Conservation Florida and what you guys do. And it was his family that determined you guys would be the organization that we donate to. So I'm forever grateful that they recommended you guys and that we made this happen. And every year, on that day, I donate 100% of my revenue for my 2 locations to you guys. And I think we've donated now to this point, like either over 40 or 50 grand in total to you guys. So, and then monthly, like every booking, we donate a portion of to Conservation Florida. So, thank you so much for the work that you guys do and making that a special thing in my life, because it means a lot, as you can tell. So thank you so much for that.
Well, we are very proud to save wild places in Alex's name. We are honored to do that, and we thank you and the entire family for trusting us with that honor. I just want you to know that we think of him often, and it's not something that we take lightly at all, that honor that's been bestowed on us. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you guys. And it's a tough day to get by every year, but it always makes me feel good when I see the work that you guys are doing. And same with his family. Like, they're so thankful of everything that you guys have done, the continuous efforts of Conservation Florida. What can we expect in the next year or two? Like we're aiming big here. Do we have any big expectations over the next foreseeable future from a conservation standpoint?
Yes, you can expect Conservation Florida to continue to save land, to protect our wild places, to advocate for meaningful conservation funding and policy. You can expect us to host educational opportunities and hikes and cool events around the state. But know that Conservation Florida is your land conservancy. You're a big part of our team. Every single person that donates is a part of this team, and we're doing this work with you. So just expect more land to be saved, more wild places to be protected, and our water and our wildlife and our corridor to continue to be conserved with your help. So Thank you.
Amazing. Yes, I'm stoked for the next year or 2 years or 10 years. Like, what you guys have done in this short amount of time, since I've been a part of it has been incredible. So, and it's only grown, like you said, like it's from a small team to, 12 plus people now and going after hundreds of thousands, if not more, of acres is pretty wild, and it's so cool to watch it happen and to be a part of it happening is even cooler. So I definitely recommend everyone, consider donating or at least just having the thought of what can I do to help conserve Florida, and you can make a big impact. So for that, Traci, thank you so much for spending an hour today with me and talking about your life and everything you've accomplished so far. Congratulations on all of that. And again, it sounds like you are a great leader, and so stoked that you are the CEO of Conservation Florida and that you get to be the one that's leading the charge in conservation.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and right back at you. It was really nice to hang out with you for an hour, and we should do this more. We should talk
Of
more,
course,
especially about payroll and all that super exciting stuff. So thank you for having me.